What's up, folks? This is Kenny with Just the Right Angle. I'm coming at you live from Little Rock, Arkansas. You can catch me, of course, at Just the Right Angle on Rumble, where I give updates on issues that affect you. Also on live stream on Podbean, Just the Right Angle as well. Also on YouTube, Keep Arkansas Legal, where I have an archive of videos. As a matter of fact, I think I'll go there first. There's actually first thing I want to talk about. It's actually been a pretty busy week. I have had there's been a lot going on. First thing that happened was on Monday, they had hearings regarding the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and the murder of Malinowski. I call it a murder. Some say, well, in a legal court, you may have to say, well, you have to have evidence. But in terms of the way that operation was done, in every sense of the word, it was a murder. The ATF illegally went into the created a warrant for Malinowski. They accused him of a crime which under Congress there's no law been written. And then they chose the worst time of day to enter his building. They chose the worst possible way to enter by smashing the door down, and then they shot and killed him. Also, they mistreated his wife, putting him in the back of a car. In addition to ATF, this operation was aided by Little Rock Police Department. Now, the hearings I have available online, it's a little more 2 hours of what they talked about this. The FBI director is Mark Bowling, was the first to testify, and he talked in detail, a little bit better detail than what I did about why this operation was completely wrong. His best line of this is what in this operation went right. But I want to play something else. I wanted to remind the people of Arkansas, especially in this election time, and with the efforts to reform the Republican Party, we had a chance to fix this problem. 3 years ago, way back in 2021, checking that far ago, when Republicans still ruled the legislature, there was a bill called SB 298, which was a state sovereignty bill. It would have made it much more difficult for these federal unconstitutional agencies to enter in the state of Arkansas and conduct their operations. Our governor then, Asa Hutchinson, who we now know is an anti-Trump, pro-Kamala Harris, pro-globalist rhino, vetoed that bill and then replaced it with a watered-down version. I'm going to play a little bit of excuses done by Representative Jeff Wardlaw, who's up for re-election. He's supposed to be a Republican, and why he supported the alternative to SB 298. And I title this Jeff Wardlaw excuses to not pass state sovereignty bill SB 298 during the 2021 General Assembly. By the way, this hearing was actually done, I forgot what time day this was, but it was April 27th. But I know one of the hearings regarding this was done around midnight. Maybe let me play this just so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's more on the override, not technically against the override. This bill, when you look through this bill, if you go to that same third page that I was at a while ago in my presentation, it references 2 federal codes. One of those federal codes collects the taxes for game and fish. That's about $17.9 million a year. That's 20% of the game and fish budget that would have to be laid off. That's huge. 20% is a big deal. The other code in there refers to 921 et al., which means it goes up from there. So it takes in 922 and on. There's about 800 potential cases in the works right now for prosecution that now state and local law enforcement officers can't participate in testifying. They can't participate in evidence. Those people potentially go free. Those are sex abuse cases. Those are drug cases. Those are all kinds of major cases. And when I got elected, I was elected to be strong on crime, not weak. And strong on crime means that we lock up the people that violate our youth, that violate other everyday citizens in this state. And that is something to potentially think about. You go on down in the bill, you get to page 4 and 5, and it's got fines in there for law enforcement. You think, oh, okay, fines, not a big deal. Well, qualified immunity for those undercover officers and officers in themselves all go away when they're a criminal. A fine is a criminal act. So you just did away with qualified immunity right there. You go on down to the next section and you put everybody, a supervised officer and elected official, in a misdemeanor. Not just your elected officials like we did in the bill previous. You go on down a little bit further and there's only about 7 or 8, 10 rights that are listed, enumerated in the bill for the back section. So we're saying those rights are more important than the other ones? I mean, all rights are important and they all should be listed, and they wasn't. So this bill was thrown together and it wasn't done in mindful of making sure that we could run state government every day, to make sure that the things that I enjoy, the one thing I do and live for and work for is so I can be a sportsman, so I can crawl around in the woods. If the game fishes loses 20% of their budget, all that public land that I hunt on, it may not be open anymore.
So basically, he claims that the bill that would have stopped the federal government from being able to do illegal raids, like when the ATF attacked Malinowski or when the FBI attacked Nathan Hughes, somehow would lead to basically the complete failure of all prosecution of all federal crime, and apparently some funding from Game and Fish, which would have ended all ability to go outdoors. And it's an absolute bull-faced lie, and he knew it. These were just cowardly excuses by rhinos that were running the party at the time to sabotage a real state sovereignty bill. By the way, this bill, a version of this bill, was passed in Scott County, and they have not had any kind of a crisis. There hasn't been an explosion of federal crimes. The drug cartels haven't taken over there, and hunting is still available there. So this was pie in the sky, I guess just overhyped drama. But apparently it worked enough, because SB 298 was voted down. A weakened version of it was replaced with a weakened bill. And since this time, we've had multiple raids. The two that I mentioned before, the FBI stuck a gun in the face of Nathan Hughes over January 6th. They also went to his house. They held and detained his girlfriend at gunpoint. His girlfriend was not even at the White House at the time. She could have easily ended up just like Brian Malinowski. And there's probably been other incidents we just haven't heard of. But yeah, that's why we need to reform the Republican Party, so we can replace guys with this with people who actually want real freedom. This guy doesn't want it, and he'll make up one excuse after another. Oh, we're going to lose our federal funding. Oh, this, that, and the other. All forms of law will cease to exist. And so, folks, you can see all kinds of footage. I have lots of footage from various events here. And this is the YouTube Keep Arkansas Legal page. Let me go to Rumble right quick, because I can play a little bit of that live stream that I was talking about that I did earlier of when they had the hearings in the ATF. Here it is. This, by the way, is the image of the ATF busting in. Of course, they this was right before, that image is when they covered up the door cam, right before they covered up the door cam. I think this is the right broadcast. This may not be the right one. And for a while, when I started hearing it, I put kind of an image of what it is I'm going to talk
Majority about. Republican?
There's where I talk about murder various definitions of murder. It's not giving me my update of when. So here's Mark Bowling. This is Frank Scott Jr. The mayor was supposed to testify but didn't. And then Colonel Hager. You had Heath Helton, Little Rock Police Department. I think he was the one that was told you're not allowed to say anything. Okay, let me get to him because this was another important event. Unfortunately, it's not letting me update from when. Here, I'll just play a little bit of share.
When I was a field executive with the FBI, we talk about a pyramid. And up here at the very top is the most extreme type of law enforcement activity you can have. It is a dynamic entry, okay? I've done those, all right? At the bottom, it's when you just send somebody a search warrant in the mail and say, hey, we'd like to schedule when we can come by and execute the search warrant. Here's a copy of it. We'll bring the official copy when we actually execute the search warrant. It's my understanding that the ATF was prepared to execute the search warrant a week ahead of time, but they chose not to because they wanted him on site. They wanted his car on site.
As I said before, they did this.
Solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth.
And I think this is the guy who
so help you God.
basically cops out and refuses to
Sir, you may be seated. Hilton, can you tell us what role that the Little Rock Police Department played in this raid?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I had a conversation with the Little Rock City Attorney prior to coming here for this hearing. And due to ongoing litigation and active investigation, I will not be making any comments in reference to Little Rock Police Department's participation.
Ongoing investigation.
Okay, any members got any questions? Senator Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Helton. Are you familiar with how many people that are on the Little Rock PD that are involved in any federal task force?
Again, sir, just as my previous statement, in conversation with the city attorney.
I'm not talking about a specific case. I'm asking you how many of your officers are involved with federal task force. I didn't say ATF, anybody else.
Sir, with all due respect, trust me, I respect the committee. I respect every person in this room.
No, you don't.
But unfortunately, I've provided my statement at the opening.
Are you familiar that officers make up to $20,000 or possibly more per year than their salary for working on task force?
Again, sir, due to potential litigation, ongoing investigation, I'm not making any comment.
Sir, I'm saying that you're not doing a public service. I'm not asking about a specific case. I'm asking you in general for what your office and your policy is.
Our stance is no different than the echo of the sentiments that Colonel Hager stated earlier.
Okay, but you cannot give any statements about what your agency does in the way.
Again, sir, I have been instructed to convey what I've conveyed.
And this is the reason that the public does not trust some agencies. And again, I'm not slandering law enforcement. I'm saying this is exactly what's the matter in our country right now. We can't get answers.
Yep.
You ought to at least be able to give a level without going into a specific case. But you're not going to do it, are you?
Sir, I provided my statement at the beginning.
Well, let me just tell you, when you took an oath of service, I think you just broke it.
No response. Yeah. So that's what happened at the hearings regarding the death of a guy at the hands of our government. And now you know why. And why it's probably going to happen again. Just like Ruby Ridge, just like Waco, just like Bundy Ranch, the owner of the Bundy Ranch, and probably other cases that we just never even heard of. There you go. That's our government for you. So yes, you can see this hour. It's 2 hours and 21 minutes. I do urge you to look at this Watch this hearing when you can. Especially, like I said, the Mark Bowling guy beforehand. Excellent job of talking about why that whole thing was never needed. And speaking of our federal government, we had the vice presidential debate last night. And lots of takeaways from this. Overall, J.D. Vance did a wonderful job. There were things I wish he would have talked about. I wish when asked about climate change, that he brought up the fact that carbon is only 0.4% of the Earth's atmosphere. Man's contribution to that is even less. And that all of these green energy plans, whether it be solar or wind, actually not only waste tax dollars, but also contribute even more carbon than using fossil fuels or oil. I guess you shouldn't say fossil because that's a trick to try to trick people into thinking that oil is going to run out. It's not going to. But of course, the big famous comment was the school shooters comment where Tim Walz said he has become friends with school shooters. Like, I don't know if that was before or after he went to Tiananmen Square or before he single-handedly defeated the Taliban in combat. But here, I'm going to play a little bit of this section here and get a little comment on this.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
Senator.
So, a few takeaways from that. Number one, assault weapons ban has never worked. There's already been one. It didn't stop school shootings. And Mr. Waltz even stated himself, he used to have a gun in the back of his car. Most people did. So obviously, it's not the prevalence of guns. By the way, with a shotgun, you can kill people even more than with an AR-15. The AR-15 is often used because it's easier to use, especially when these depressed kids who are on meds and oftentimes let out of a mental institution and are financially struggling are given weapons by some suspicious means. Happens a lot. But he just in that statement, he just stated the reason why these assault weapons bans or these gun-free zones don't work. Later on, Mr. Waltz tries to brag about red flag laws, which is nothing but this Gestapo-style tell-on-you system where you can call the police and say so-and-so is insane. You're supposed to be a relative, but there's no penalty if it turns out you're not. And it's actually gotten someone killed. I know in Maryland, there was a red flag. If you type in Maryland red flag law death, you'll see some guy, I think it was this guy's ex-wife, got mad at him, so called the cops on him and said he was crazy, and it escalated and he ended up dying. Also, the NRA does still practice gun safety. I don't know where he's getting the line that says that they used to. They still do that. A lot of organizations do that. There's also gun places, target shooting places where you can go and learn about that. And if these anti-gun nuts like him and Mayor Bloomberg and Shannon Watts' Mom's Demand, other organizations really cared about gun safety, they would either push for legislation to lower the taxes and regulations on gun ranges, or better yet, use their own money and finance those. But of course, they don't do that because they don't really care about gun safety. They just want it as an excuse to register and confiscate guns. They are anti-gun. They always will be. That's the way they are. So that's not even the worst thing this guy says. Probably the worst thing he said was when he was asked about Tiananmen Square. He claimed he was there and he wasn't. And of course, notice the media didn't bother to ask the little thing about his military service.
Thank you, Governor. You previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters.
So there you go. I put on the icon the other picture where he was staring He had a lot of weird stares. He was staring at JD Vance for a while. Overall, you can watch more of the debate. I did live stream that as well. Rank hypocrisy. Before the VP debate, there was another hearing, and it was over paper ballots. Of course, by using paper ballots, we take away the ability of nefarious organizations from being able to hijack and steal our elections. Now, during this debate over paper ballots, there was an opening statement from a state rep who had made a bill regarding a bill concerning the domicile of here it is. I'll put a little bit beforehand. Here we go. Senate Bill 346, and she'll explain what 346 is, and I'm going to explain what it really is. First of all, if you're having to describe the intent of a bill, that right there should probably tell you did a bad job in terms of writing it. Bills are supposed to be written. For instance, the rule regarding when the abortion ballot initiative, they were supposed to have a certain form that was to be provided to them by the Secretary of State, and it was supposed to be signed by a certain person. Those are distinct details. The pro-abortion people, they call themselves Arkansas for Limited Government, and I'll get to them in a little bit, were supposed to do that, and they didn't. Therefore, the signatures from their paid canvassers did not count. Clear, distinct, and they had the money to take that to the Arkansas Supreme Court, and they did, and they lost, rightfully so, because they violated the law. Same thing if you do a background check. There's a process you have to go through in order to get that done. So it's clear and distinct. Now remember that when Deanne Vance talks about her bill regarding paid canvassers and a domicile. Does your law state that they have to pay taxes in Arkansas? Do they have to go file and pay a property tax? If the law doesn't state that, then it doesn't matter if you intended it to be that. That's not the case. And we find out later on the hearings, it doesn't appear that that's the case at all. It's SB 346. I'll try to do some more research on it, but it doesn't look like that's there. And by the way, almost every ballot initiative this year had out-of-state canvassers. What about an apartment? So they go through the rest of this hearing is all about, almost all of it was notaries, and they asked the notaries, did you look at the licenses? And notaries said no. All they had to do was check in, the picture and the person, but they didn't bother to look at the address because the law wasn't, and because there was no definite intent of the law to state that they had to have a home address in Arkansas. After the notaries, they go, Clint Lancaster's brought up, the lawyer for Arkansas Voter Integrity Initiative, and they ask him all these questions about residency. And again, he has to say, look, he cites one case where it turns out that residency didn't necessarily have to be a permanent residence. Now, this was all a legal back and forth that went on for a long time. But here's the thing. The legislature screwed up. Deanne Vaught screwed up. They did not make clear in the law that you had to be a resident that had to pay taxes. There was no time limit. They asked multiple times, is it a week, 2 weeks? Nobody knows. So the people who gathered signatures for paper ballots, which includes me, and even those that are out of state, should not have to pay for the failure of the state legislature to not clearly state their intent. And for that matter, the Arkansas courts, because this has been for a while now. There's been multiple lawsuits, and in none of those lawsuits have they say, as far as I can tell, have they said, well, your out-of-state canvasser didn't stay for a week. Your out-of-state canvasser didn't pay taxes. It's not like the abortion amendment where it's a clear definition of what they were supposed to do, and they failed to do it. Their rules have definites. They are defined. This is the same problem we have with the Republican Party of Arkansas leadership. When they had their executive committee to overturn the state convention, number one, they didn't have the authority to do that. Number two, they failed to give 10 days notification. Number three, they failed to give the other chance to put in writing a defense regarding the rule changes made in the state convention. They violated multiple rules. Before the state convention, the rules committee failed to release the rule changes themselves. They're only supposed to do a recommend or not recommend. It clearly states that. They are not a gatekeeper. They do not have the ability to ban or change or alter the state convention agenda. That is not in their power. They broke all kinds of rules. So, folks, because of the Arkansas Republican Party State Convention, primaries are closed. Legislatures do not have a free vote in the state committee meeting. Conventions are to be held within, I believe, 30 miles of central Arkansas, the state capital. Those are the rules that we voted on and set, and we, as a state convention body, were able to do. But I want to get something else too. They've brought up the issue of, we're not supposed to have these people bust in who could possibly change our state constitution. And I've wondered about this. They're probably in the next session going to give definitions regarding the state convention. I'm sorry, not the state convention, regarding out-of-state canvassers. Okay, they're gonna clearly define this, which they should have done before, and which is why the paper ballots in the 9 counties where they gathered enough signatures to put on the ballot should be allowed on the ballot. Because number one, if there was a problem with the title, then these idiot clerks should have taken care of it and found out about it before people went out and gathered signatures. If you wait till that's done and over with, no, you don't get to come back and suddenly say, oh, wait a minute, sorry to waste all your time, but I found something wrong with the title that's been out for several months. No, you don't. You should not be able to do that. But here's another issue. If Deanne Vaught and these other anti-paper ballot people are so concerned about out-of-state canvassers and money being out-of-state influencing the Arkansas legislature, let's also deal with the money. I'll give an example. Here's one of the ballot initiatives. This is, let me see here, let me make sure I get my page number right. So I have to scroll down to page number 10. Oh, no, wait a minute. This is the group, one of the groups that actually did go to gather signatures. Arkansas for Limited Government. Now, by the way, they're not for limited government. They're for murdering the unborn. That's really what this organization should be called. They tried to keep abortion off of their ballot page. This was the pro-abortion amendment, the one I mentioned before, that screwed up in terms of their not signing the affidavit properly. This is one of their main contributors. They had upwards of $300,000, but not quite half of that was from these people, Cheryl Huffman and Errol Huffman. And they're the executive directors of this organization called Green Shoots Foundation. If you go to Green Shoots Foundation, the only thing they have here is that some video about COVID. I've already seen this. And it's all about vaccination. The Fauci flu jab. And that's pretty much all they have. This is it. Now, I don't know what else they do, but if they do more than this, their website doesn't show it. By the way, presently, Ted heads strategic development, a Manhattan-based investment management firm. Ted and Cheryl Huffman, 30 years, blah, blah, blah. They grew up in Arkansas, then they went off, and then Ted went in the Navy, been all over the world, moving to New York. Cheryl's a corporate securities attorney, and then they're either New York, and I've heard they've I think last time I looked up, there was some address in Connecticut. It's pretty much the same area. Bottom line, they do not have a domicile in Arkansas. Okay, they don't go down to the county, any county in Arkansas, and have to pay property tax, just like your out-of-state canvassers. And this is nothing. This is nothing compared to the money that's given to Asa Hutchinson by Pfizer and all kinds of out-of-state organizations. The bottom line is if you're gonna stop out-of-state canvassers, then you need to stop out-of-state funding. That's all I would do. Okay, you want to do that? Go ahead. Keep all these lobbying firms these national and international lobbying firms from being able to donate the state of Arkansas. And if they cite the First Amendment, well, you can say, well, we thought it was okay to keep state canvassers out, so we're okay to keep you out too. Yeah, of course, and it doesn't matter if you have enough money to set up a fake LLC in Blytheville, but you still live over in the northeastern part of the nation. You're an out-of-stater. You can't use funds in Arkansas politics. I don't know. That's going to be a debate coming up in the legislative session, along with a lot of other things. I hope there's going to be an effort to push for self-deportation laws. They already know that a lot of these same actors that are anti-paper ballot are going to probably try to sabotage it. I don't know. Maybe they will. It kind of seems like they will. I'm hoping that the same games that will happen under Asa Hutchinson won't happen under Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I know that her chief of staff, Chris Caldwell, is responsible for a lot of the problems that we have in the Republican Party. In a just rule, he and Joseph Wood would already be sued for the way they've mistreated conservatives here in the state. But in the meantime, there is something you can do with your own money. I got this from my lovely wife, Rebecca. She got this regarding Rumble. Rumble sent this message to her in email. Dunkin' Donuts discriminates. This is how we can respond. Dunkin' Donuts discriminated against the entire Rumble platform in email they wrote us. They refused to advertise on Rumble because of the right-wing culture of our website. By the way, Rumble's not just right-wing. It's like all kinds of stuff there. There's animals, there's singing, there's a couple Democrats on there. So Rumble has an official partner, 1775 Coffee. I may try to get them as a sponsor. I just now found out about this. But yeah, there's another company you can boycott. And you can boycott by going over to here. I'll check this people out. I like coffee later in the day. Becca loves coffee, but anyway, sweetie, I hope everything's going well. To everybody else, you all have a great day. I'm actually going to get to work. Tune into 102.9 FM, The Answer. Well, I'm sure Brad Schmidt will have some comments regarding the VP debate and other things. You all have a wonderful day.